happy holidays. This is day number 6 with coping with the holidays. And if I sit up tall, you don't actually see that I have this little elf hair going on right here. So I thought that would be kind of fun. I didn't do it on purpose, but I saw that it was happening and I thought that I would just leave it in spirit of the holidays. So today I wanted to talk about how to help the needy without enabling or draining yourself. And often when we think about needy people, we think about those that are, less fortunate in terms of not having adequate home, safety, shelter, funds, resources. And that's a very important group of people to help and to support. So I don't want to, it all take away from the importance of service and helping those that are less fortunate. But there are another group of people who are emotionally needy. And these are the people that we don't help in the same way that you would help someone who doesn't have, resources or access to, safety, to home, to food. So I wanted to do a talk on helping those that are emotionally needy and helping in a way that's actually helpful to them, that perhaps also improves or benefits the relationship, and also allows for both people to gain something from the interaction that's actually beneficial or helpful, as opposed to something that feels like we give to someone else. They may or may not gain from it, and we don't actually feel better. We feel drained, which it can kind of feel like when we're trying to help someone who has, a needy is general, but like those people that feel like they're always bringing like the bearer of bad news and everything going wrong, and the complaining and the just the constant cycle of things going wrong and woe is me. So let's talk about that. So one of the most compassionate things that we can communicate, and these 3 tips are taken from Thich Nhat Hanh's book on, it's called Communication. And I really love how they describe it, because he says that communication is like food, and we're constantly consuming other people's communication and we take it in. And so this is really important to think about when someone is, complaining or venting or, always talking about the negative and what's going wrong, that we think that we're just helping because we're there, but we actually sometimes we're consuming that communication, and it's actually like it's malnourishment. It's food that we're taking in. So we want to be, one of the biggest gifts that we can give each other for the holidays, we can give ourselves for the holidays, is to nurture each other through the food of our communication. So I'm going to talk about how to do that now. So one of the most compassionate things that we can communicate to someone who is complaining, who's kind of like in this woe is me downward spiral, is the compassionate communication of I am here. And that means that when someone is communicating, it's easier to, try to problem solve for them, or try to fix it, or try to, even give them the time of being in their presence or being on the phone with them without actually being present for them and for what they're saying. So the very first part is the communication and the intention of I am here. And then the second part is that I see that you are suffering. And that's important because often we do not recognize that someone else is suffering before we go in and we try to provide, like I said, a solution, or we don't pay attention to the emotional part of what someone's going through. And that's what we do when we jump to a solution. We go right to what they need to do to fix it, what we can do to fix it. And all of that is shifting to the behavior part of what they ought to do, which brings in the component of judgment. And the most important thing or the most significant thing that we can do is acknowledge that that person, even though they're like being negative, they're complaining, they're maybe seeing things in a dark perspective, is to acknowledge that they are suffering. And so that you don't need to say like, I see that you're suffering. Like that sounds kind of, like something like a Zen master would say. And I know that we're all just humans, right? So something that could be a similar compassionate communication other than I see that you're suffering is that I see that you're going through a hard time. Or I see that this really must be hard. Or I see that this really is hard. This really is difficult. I know that you're hurting. I know that this is really sad. So just that acknowledgement of I see what you're going through, and I see that this is hard, is something that really nurtures people to have not just the presence of you being there with them, but to communicate that you see that they're suffering. And that when you communicate that, there's a part of them that recognizes that you connect to that because you probably understand it, you felt it yourself. And then the third part of the communication is that I want to help. And I really love this third part of the compassionate communication, which is I want to help, because we, again, often do not express the intention that we want to help, and we go right in to assuming what we need to do to help, or what we think we need to do, or what we think that they need to do. Mostly it's just like trying to get them out of the emotion that they're feeling. And that actually sometimes isn't helpful. Sometimes we become helpful by actually enabling the person and doing something for them that they don't want us to do, or that they need to do for themselves. And so just the acknowledgement of I want to help can create the space for that person to actually communicate what they need in order to be helped. And sometimes someone who's complaining actually may not know what they need to be helped, or they may not be ready to receive help. So even just the expression of saying to someone, I want to help, also opens up that space for that person to be able to say, thank you, but I'm not in the place where I'm ready to receive that. Or thank you, that means so much to me. I don't know what I need to be helped either, or I don't know what help would feel like at this time. And that can create such an important dialogue to have with someone who's stuck, or like I said, who's in a needy, helpless place. So all these three things are communications that you can give to a person who is having a hard time. They're the great gifts of communication, where we can start to nurture each other with our communication. And then the second part I'm going to give you is about how we can start to nurture ourselves when we recognize that we are suffering. And this is really important, because sometimes when we want to help someone, or someone's going through a hard time, we often get so focused on what that other person needs and what they're feeling that we miss the fact that we are the ones that are actually suffering. And sometimes we are suffering more in reaction to somebody else's suffering. So, let's say that someone's making choices that we don't like or we don't agree with. That person's obviously making these choices, and we are having all of these feelings about the choices that they're making, because we're judging them. Oh, they're putting themselves in a bad situation. Now they're going to need help. Now they're going to need to ask me for help, and I'm going to, So it's actually, sometimes we want to help other people, but we are so consumed by our own feelings of not being able to help, or not knowing what to do, or fearing that someone's gonna ask more than we have to give, that we conflate or misperceive our own feelings for the feelings that somebody else is having. So simply being able to discern and be able to be here for yourself. I am here for myself, and I recognize when somebody might be asking me for something that I feel stretched to be able to give. I might feel inadequate. I might feel hopeless for this person. I might feel sad. I might feel frustrated. I might feel scared that I really want to help this person, and maybe I'm scared that if I don't help them, they're not going to be okay. So being able to recognize your own feelings that you're having, in your life, but especially when you want to help someone, number one. Number two is to be able to recognize that when you are here for yourself, and that you can recognize that you are suffering, you can validate that for yourself by being able to recognize the emotions that you're having that are separate and different than the person who you are trying to help. And then the third part, sometimes we can also, in being compassionate to ourselves, be able to recognize our own suffering and be able to say, and I need help. And this is one of the most compassionate things that we can offer to ourselves, is the statement of I need help. When we say that to other people, that creates the opportunity not just for compassion, but also for connection, which is one of the other greatest gifts that we can give each other during the holiday. Because by stating that I need help, I'm suffering and I need help, without having to decide or determine what that help is that you need, allows that person to decide and figure out and even collaborate, brainstorm on what they can do or how you can feel supported and get the help that you need. And often when we are thinking that we need help, we often think that we need somebody to do something, or we create an expectation about how someone needs to help, when in actuality, when someone can show up for us in helping by simply being here with us in the emotion that we're feeling, acknowledging that we're feeling it, and expressing the intention to help, that those three things alone can be one of the highest and most significant ways that we can feel supported by other people. And it is the foundation or the bridge to opening up to deeper levels of support and connection, intimacy, and nurturing in our relationships. So the three things: I am here, I see that you're suffering, and I want to help. And for ourselves, you're here for yourself. I am here for myself. I recognize that I am suffering and I need help. So those are the three things, whether you're practicing helping others or practicing being compassionate to yourself. Would love to hear what you think. And if you practice these three things, or any one of the three things, let me know what you find out and what your experience is. I'll be back tomorrow with I think we'll be on day 7 of coping with the holidays. Inbox me, comment below. Let me know what you're struggling with or what your favorite thing is about the holiday, and I will look forward to seeing you all then.